Again, thank you for coming, everyone, to this very important event. We'd like to start by introducing Michael Daly, from the editorial page editor of the Connecticut Post. He's going to say a few words about the newspaper's commitment to this dialogue in the community. Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Frank. There's a lot of important stuff to do here today, so I'm not going to drone on. Certainly thanks to Mayor Finch and Secretary Lawlor for being the driving force behind this, and thank you to all the people who came out here this morning. There's an uncomplimentary sort of description of the role of editorial page editors at newspapers, and that is that they sit up on the mountain, they watch the battle as it goes on below, and then they go down and they polish off the wounded. We don't intend to do that at the Connecticut Post, and that's why I'm here. About a year ago, we convened something like this. A lot of the people who are here today were at that forum at the University of Bridgeport. And I'm here on behalf of the publisher and the newspaper to say that in this particular battle, trying to make the streets of Bridgeport safe, we do not intend to sit on the hill and observe. We want to be joined in that battle and help in any way that we can. That having been said, I'm not exactly sure what our role is, other than the obvious one that we can be a platform for a continuing dialogue on this. So there will be lots of things spoken about today, and I'm here to, not to talk, but to listen and to engage with you and figure out how the newspaper can be effective in helping alleviate this situation. So that really is it. Thank you very much, and good luck today in making some progress on what we need to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. I'll briefly describe the event for you today in terms of how this event will go. It'll start with the mayor and the chief giving an overview about this uptick of gun violence and violence in general and crime in general in the city. Then we'll have a half-hour discussion in which you will be able to break out into your table groups, and a spokesperson will report back to us in terms of what you've come up with. And you'll have 2 or 3 issues to identify and 1 or 2 action steps that you may want to take. And finally, I would say that the mayor will come up and introduce his guest, and we'll start with that next. So, Mayor Finch.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you to Joanne Jacob, the principal here, and the diocese for them opening their doors here in the Hollow, an area of the city that, as we know, that has its own problems with violence, as do several other of our neighborhoods. And I want to thank you all for coming, because the way I look at this problem is violence is a disease of the community, and this is a community issue. And all of us need to step up our game. From me, to you, to prosecutors, to judges, to community activists, to NRZs, to people who own corner stores in the neighborhood, and to just regular homeowners. We've all got to do a better job, because if our community has this disease of violence, then it must be the community that responds to fixing that disease and hopefully curing it one day. One of the things that I would like to point out is in an area that I need to do more, and that is in the area of illegal guns. I did join Mayor Bloomberg's Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and we are targeting 2 loopholes, and we need all of your help in rallying the government to close these loopholes. If ATF closes a gun store because of illegal behavior, they are able to sell their entire inventory without background checks. That means that those guns flood into our streets. I see Ron is here, Pinciaro, from the Connecticut Citizens Against Gun Violence. The other loophole is the gun shows. Gun shows allow wide sales of illegal weapons because there is no background check at gun shows either. So we need to do a better job. I need to do a better job of getting more active in that group. And we hope that when you break out here in your tables and come up with suggestions, that you will be able to think of things that you and the members of your table can do. Because my belief is this is a disease of the community, and the community must respond. I'm very, very proud to introduce our first speaker from the state of Connecticut. He's the Deputy Commissioner, but more importantly than that, Mike Lawlor is a dear friend of mine that goes back to our days sitting in class together at the University of Connecticut, and our friendship goes back that far. I can tell you that there are very few people smarter than the man I'm going to introduce, and there are very few people who are better listeners and collaborators than Mike Lawlor. So it's a great position that he's in at this moment in time. I'm glad the governor saw fit to appoint him to this position because we need him. And he's going to be working with all of us in this room. There will be some limited resources increasing to address this problem, but the one thing I want to urge is there are things that we can do that don't cost anything. And it just means we all do our job a little bit better and reach down into our internal resources. That doesn't cost anything. There will be some new resources, though, and we'll be interested to hear about that. I would like to just thank all the members of the NRZ that are here, and council members Martinez, Olson, Brandley, and Taylor Moy, and Cologne, whose district we're in. And I believe those are the only city council members that are here right now, John Olson. So thank you very much for coming. And Mike, please come and give us your ideas.
Well, thanks very much, Mayor. You know, it was kind of a long time we were at the University of Connecticut, wasn't it? But your mayor, Bill Finch, back when we were at UConn, was already a leader on campus. I remember one of my first campaigns ever was helping him get elected to one of the offices at UConn. And he has, as he said, been a good friend ever since. I remember one year coming down and knocking on doors for you many, many years ago in the hood, right? And he has been as loyal a citizen of his city, Bridgeport, as I have to my own hometown where I still live. So these things are very important to me. So I know what you're thinking, right? You got a bunch of politicians here like myself, and you're saying we've heard all this stuff before, and they're going to tell us what we want to hear, and nothing's actually going to happen. So I know exactly what you're thinking. But I have to say that the guy I now work for, Governor Malloy, has been very clear to me about what he expects. And I heard very similar point of view from Mayor Finch. We expect to have results. And here's how the governor looks at these things. And here's how I look at these things. And I would invite you to look at these things in this way. First of all, it's very important to set priorities. And Governor Malloy has made very clear to me what his priorities are in the area of criminal justice. Number one, reduce crime. Number two, reduce spending. And number three, restore confidence in the criminal justice system. Confidence among victims of crime who come away from the process feeling that they did not get justice. Confidence among African Americans and Latinos who come away believing the criminal justice system is not fair to them. And confidence among all citizens who look at scandals inside the criminal justice system, police, prosecutors, judges, and governors and legislators sometimes being dragged out of their offices in handcuffs because of corruption. And they lose confidence in the ability of the criminal justice system to deliver justice. And so the governor's been very clear, you need to address each of these things. But priority number one is reducing crime, and within that priority, it's reducing violent crime. Now the good news is that, believe it or not, and this is true in Connecticut and throughout the entire country, crime, as is reported to the feds, is at its lowest point since the late 1960s. It's true in Connecticut. It's true in every city in the state. It's true in Bridgeport. It's very surprising, especially when in the media we see all these shootings. But there is an exception to that statistic, and that is shootings in urban areas involving young men often for reasons that make no sense to us, involved not so much in gangs as they were understood 20 years ago, but in these new neighborhood groups, shooting each other because of turf battles, because of girlfriend arguments, because of just to prove that they're a man. And this particular problem is actually getting worse. And that's why I think our focus has to be to get results on this specific problem. Bring the number of shootings down. We think there's a way to accomplish this goal. And the only way to do it, in a way that is sustainable, is to take all of the resources of the criminal justice world and combine it with all the resources of the community and agree that we will work together to get these results. In this regard, it's worth pointing out that the state of Connecticut has a lot to contribute to this effort here in Bridgeport. We have the state police, and they're represented here. We have the Department of Corrections, and they're represented here. We have the parole officers who supervise recently released inmates in the community, and they are represented here. We have our Office of Adult and Juvenile Probation, they are represented here today. We have prosecutors. We have victim advocates. We have a wide array of resources which we can bring to bear. We also know that virtually all of the people, the young people who are doing the shootings and who are getting shot, are already under the supervision of the criminal justice system. They're either on probation or parole, or they have pending charges, and some of the future shooters and future victims are currently incarcerated. And that gives us at the state level a special obligation. If our job is to supervise these people, our job is to make sure they don't shoot anybody, and our job is to make sure they don't get shot. And the criminal justice system has unique tools to use with people already under their supervision. For example, in New Haven, we developed a list of 400 young people most likely to either get shot or shoot somebody based on their prior criminal experiences. And in almost every case, the people getting shot and the people doing the shooting were on this list. Of the 400, 250 are currently incarcerated, and the other 150 are either on probation or parole. So we know we have state resources that we can make available to your local law enforcement community to help target the people that are the most likely to be creating this problem. Now, the mayor mentioned guns are a big part of the problem, and they certainly are. And that's another discussion that needs to take place. But for the people who are creating this problem, they're already under our supervision. So our challenge is to identify them, get them exposed to both the carrot and the stick. If they want to turn their lives around, we will make that opportunity available to them. If they do not, then we have very extraordinary criminal sanctions which we can bring to bear. That's our commitment, and that's what the governor said to me. So the good news is the legislature has recently set aside some special resources to do this in the cities where the problem is most pronounced. Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, New Britain, Norwalk. That's where the shootings are in this category I'm talking about. And over the next year, you will see an extraordinary effort in this regard. But it's only going to work. It's only going to work if the communities that are expected to work with us as partners are fully invested in this effort. And that's why today's discussion is so important, so important. Because if those of you who live in Bridgeport buy into this and are willing to participate, law enforcement and community advocates, we on the state level, and I can speak in this regard for our federal partners in the United States Attorney's Office, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, they are all invested in working together in collaboration. We can stop these shootings. We can do it. And a year from now, if we haven't done it, then my job is on the line, and I'm willing to take that risk. I think we can solve this problem. And the governor is willing to work hand in hand with Mayor Finch, your police chief, your law enforcement community. We will get this done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was my honor and privilege to appoint Chief Gaudette, recommend him to the Police Commission. They agreed with my choice, and he's been doing a fine job ever since. Please welcome Police Chief Joseph Gaudette.
Good morning. I'm going to try to move down here because we've got a little PowerPoint we're going to do. So let me
Do you need a microphone?
yeah, is there one right there that I can use right there? Is that on? Tim, thanks.
Tim, can you use the microphone on the floor?
Yeah.
Okay. You may have to turn it on, Chief.
Okay. So good morning, and thank you everyone for coming. Especially want to thank my law enforcement partners who are here for coming today. Certainly Mr. Lawlor, the governor, for recognizing that this issue is so important that you would call this forum, and we really appreciate you being here. Looking forward to working together in this next year. It is going to be a very important year, and I think that Undersecretary Lawlor did an excellent job narrowing down to what the issue really is right now. The issue here in Bridgeport and in all the large cities in Connecticut is gun violence, and it's gun violence perpetrated by young people, mostly male, and the reasons for that are so many and so varied, and that's why you're all here. And yeah, we need to do more for our children so that they have other options besides gang life, besides violent crime. And we need to support their parents, and we need to have better schools, and we need to have more after-school programs. We need all that. But what we need right now, we need for this violence to stop. That's what we need right now. So my goal today is to ask you to work together to come up with some ideas on how we can get this to stop now. And I can tell you, I can give you some stats, and I will. As of May 27th, the city of Bridgeport has had 10 homicides compared to 8 last year at this time. It's an increase of 25%. Our robberies, and a lot of these groups, they do strong arm robberies in order to make their money and prove themselves. Our robberies are up 32% this year. Our motor vehicle thefts are up 4%. Our burglaries are up 7%. Shooting incidents are actually down this year, but we've had 25 shooting incidents, and some pretty high-profile shooting incidents, and we'll talk about those a little bit. And the number of shooting victims has increased to 34, and that's just with less than half a year down. But it's not about numbers. It's about lives. It's about neighborhoods. It's about families. It's about communities. So what I'd like to do is, where's Jay? I'd like to, this is Sergeant Jason Malloy from our statewide urban violence task force. And Jay's helped me put a PowerPoint together to try to elucidate what I believe the real issues are here. What's that? No, I think you see it okay. So here we have a picture of a group of folks who are attending the funeral of Booby Padilla, Alex Booby Padilla, in March of 2010. 15 people in the picture?
There's 15 males in this photograph. Good morning, everyone. This photograph was taken for Anthony Padilla's funeral. It was taken right after. There's 15 males in this photograph. It was taken in 2010, directly right after his funeral. The sad part about this photograph is after we start tracking all these kids, This is what we noticed after the last 2 years until today. Out of these 15 kids, we've had 2 homicide victims, 1 stabbing victim, 6 shooting victims, 5 robbery suspects, 6 firearms arrests, and on the very bottom it says 1 carjacking suspect. So out of 15 kids, this is what we've come up with. And we start watching the trends in the neighborhoods with these young kids. The ages of these kids are from 12 to 20 years old. This is just one small neighborhood in the city of Bridgeport. We see this all over the city with these young juveniles. And it's an ongoing trend right now.
Thanks, Jim. And so this is just a microcosm of what exists in our neighborhoods. This is one group in one neighborhood. There's dozens of groups like this that are out there every day, and they're not in jail, or they're in jail and they're out of jail. A lot of these kids are still out on the street, still causing these problems every night. Just a microcosm of what exists out there. 15 people. And this is what we know. We also know that groups like this, prey on people who won't report robberies and assaults because of their status or because of intimidation and threats by groups like these. So this is the problem. This is the urgent issue that needs to be addressed by this group right now. Can we go on to the next slide? Or just touch it?
No, I did.
Oh, you did. Okay. You hear the mayor talk about illegal weapons, and there are so many guns out on the street. And how do they get there? I guess lately the biggest thing is they're trading them for dope. We've got people coming from outside the city, coming into the city and trading their guns for dope. The dope, then and then there's a whole underground market for these things, and they get into the hands of these kids. The other thing is that when I was a young police officer, the gateway crime tended to be stolen cars. You had to arrest a kid 4, 5, 6 times before somebody finally said, "Oh, you know what? We better put him away." It was a gateway crime. What was only the first time you got caught with a stolen car, in a stolen car? Or only the second time you got caught. Now, it seems that in 2012, the gateway crimes become guns. Well, it's only the first time he was caught with a gun. Really? How many times do we have to catch kids with guns before we do something to change the behavior? Whatever it takes to change the behavior, lock them up if that's the answer. But we have people here in this room, all over the state, that provide services, programs, support. We need to keep these folks supported so that they change their behavior. So here we have Rosado Jaquan, arrested in 2009 for a facsimile firearm. The facsimile is this gun over here, the one on the right. Looks pretty real to me. And he was convicted of that.
Yes, he was.
And
The reason this case stands out is when Juan Rosado ran with the same kids I showed you earlier, within that group, he was not in that photograph. The sad part about Juan was he was arrested in a house, one with a real firearm, one with a facsimile. He served a short amount of time in jail. After he was released, he was seen. These are photographs that these kids put up. This is just a side thing. That's actually the real firearm behind me. These are the things that we see day in and day out with these kids. Because of the social networkings, we see that they like to post a lot of these pictures of themselves, which is scary. We use these now, but they're out there and we're able to see them. But Jaquan, after he served the time for the facsimile firearm, he was in Washington Park right after he was released, and the police officer saw him loitering at night. Now, as we all know, the parks are not allowed to be in the parks after dusk. So when the officers tried to stop this individual, he took off running, and he threw down that weapon there. When they ran over to see if to recover the weapon was another facsimile firearm. It was a pellet gun. But as you can see, that gun looks real. And we deal with a lot of these young kids that will go out and buy pellet guns, BB guns, airsoft guns that represent real firearms. And it's a scare to law enforcement because until we actually physically touch that weapon, we don't know if it's real. Jaquan was arrested that night. He did a little time in jail again. He got out of jail. We had talked earlier today, and they were talking about the cooperation amongst police departments, law enforcement, and citizens. Well, back in December of this year, the school resource people realized that they had some information about there was going to be a shooting at Central High School. That information went through the chain very quickly and got to us in the police department. A meeting was held, and we set up an area to try to figure out who was going to shoot one of our students at one of the schools, Central High School. Well, as we set up in the area, Jaquan Rosado this time walked his way down Madison Avenue and was walking right towards the school. It was a warm day. He had a heavy coat on with a heavy sweatshirt. He saw the police officers. They went to stop him to talk to him. There was a foot chase. He ran through 100 students at Central High School and was apprehended. That's what he had in his coat. That now was a real gun that was loaded. These are the things that's cooperation and people talking amongst one another. When the SROs and the school resource officers hear about this stuff in security, it gets funneled through the chain. It immediately gets to everyone that needs to know, and we're able to stop things like this. Same with the community. If we all work together, if we hear something, say something. If we can pass it along to the right people and get it to the police department, get it to the people that can help, we can stop this before it happens. He pled out to these charges. He pled out in January 31st, 2012. He got 5 years suspended, 2 years he's going to serve with 3 years probation. That's the max he can get for that firearm. So he'll be out in about a year and a half back on the street. And this is what we see day in and day out with young kids with firearms.
So, that's the end of the PowerPoint. But I hope you get the point, okay? We're not changing the behavior. We have bad actors out there that are continually acting badly. And we need to change the behavior. All the programs that we can provide for all those kids that need something, let's do that too. But this is what needs to be addressed right now, here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that sobering presentation. We must be with military-type folk because we're supposed to do the next part at 10:15. It's 10:14. So, good job. At this time, we are going to break out within our groups, and if you look next to you and you see somebody with the exact same uniform you have on, split up. Go to the tables, especially this table to my right, and the two Fairfield offices over here. Make sure you spread out a little bit, and if you're with a group of people you know, then move to table where you don't know as many people, please. Thank you for that.